first thing I want to talk about is social class and status. So when we start the sequence, you can see that the clothes that my character wears, they're not exactly poor clothes. They're not rich clothes either, but they should indicate that my character is somewhere along the lines of middle class before he lost his memory. So that's how he could probably afford the clothes. In the future of the film, there would be revelations of like who the character is and how he got to where he was, how he got to his memory being lost. And yeah, another thing to do with social group and social status is the clothes worn by the masked villain. It's a hoodie and I think tracksuit bottoms, so they should indicate that he is of working class, because that's something you'd expect of a teenager or something. It shows that he can't exactly afford the best of clothes. Another thing about my character that shows his social class is the fact that he pulls out an iPhone 5. So this so that means that he's also able to pay for an expensive device, because iPhones are actually quite expensive. So seeing that on the screen in the character's pockets, that would mean he's a little above, he's a bit above middle class, I think. The next thing I want to talk about is the age of the protagonist. So what we show on the screen is a teenager or somewhere along the lines of a teenager and a young adult. You could tell the age based on the physique of the character. He's not exactly massive and muscly. Yeah, so you could tell this is a young character, and this actually plays an important part in the film, because the fact that he's a teenager means he's going to find it a lot more difficult to think his way out of situations and anything that might come up. The next thing I was going to talk about was gender and the fact that we have an all-male cast throughout our opening sequence, and you could hear a female voice during the phone call of the opening. The fact that you can only see all males on screen, it means that the roles have reversed, so it's the male character that's now vulnerable instead of a female character, because usually in most thriller films you expect to see a female character running from something or being chased by something, or even trapped somewhere. It's usually always a female character that's being tortured in the beginning, just to give an idea of the villain, of how the villain works. But in this case, it's a male character, and he's just introduced straight away. There's also a counter stereotype on how men are showed on screen, because instead of having a massive, brute, strong male, now you see that the main protagonist is a small, young and lean male. So this acts as a counter stereotype to what you usually see in thrillers. One of the main things that can be noticed during this sequence is the fact that the main character is of color, and what you'd expect in most thriller films or any film in general is that the main character is a white character, and up until now a character of color would have most likely been an extra, or not the main character, maybe a character in the background. Other than that, you wouldn't have expected a character of color to have been on screen. You wouldn't have expected the main character to be of color. And another thing, not much is revealed about the masked villain, not the color, not the identity. So this means that the masked villain could be anyone. You couldn't exactly pinpoint who he is. You couldn't exactly pinpoint the type of person he is. So So yeah, just to recap, we talked about social class and status and how the main character is of middle class based on his clothes and his phone, and the antagonist is most likely of working class. We also talked about age, and we spoke about the fact that the main character isn't exactly, and we spoke about how he's a younger teenager, so he's more likely to make mistakes, and the amnesia won't help because he's going to find it a lot more difficult to work his way out of situations that may arise. We also spoke about gender and how it acts as a counter stereotype to what we see in most films. So our character is small, skinny and lean. In most of the films, the main character is expected to be a strong white large male, and yeah, so we kind of go against that. And another thing we spoke about was the fact that the gender, it reverses the roles that you'd see in most thriller films at the opening. So instead of having a cliche female being attacked or chased or hunted, we changed the roles and gave it to a male character. We flipped the roles and made the endangered character a male. The last thing we spoke about was race and ethnicity, and we spoke about how in most films you'd expect a white male, and usually a person of color wouldn't be the main character. Instead, they'd be either a background character or an extra, not someone who's the main character. So a character of color would have most likely been put in a, based on my color skin, I would have probably been put in a crime, in a thug position, but this goes against that.